"You're not half the man my fiancé is." The wine glass trembled in her hand. Not from fear, not from cold, but from the thrill of arrogance. She looked at me across the dinner table, my wife's younger sister, the one who never learned silence, and said it with a smile sharp enough to cut through the evening. "You're not half the man my fiancé is." The words landed with a quiet thud inside me. Heavy, poisonous, but not unexpected. I had been waiting for the venom. She always struck when the room was full, when my wife's laughter masked her contempt. I didn't flinch. I didn't argue. I simply pushed my chair back slowly, letting the legs scrape against the polished hardwood. That sound silenced the clinking forks, froze the laughter in mid-air. "Then," I said, my voice steady, almost casual, "he can start paying your rent." Her smirk collapsed. The blood drained from her face. "Rent?" she whispered, eyes darting to my wife, then back to me. "What rent?" The room went cold. My wife stiffened beside me. No one spoke. And in that silence I felt it again. The certainty that beneath her bravado, beneath the fiancé she paraded, there was a secret waiting to be dragged into the light. I had only cracked the door. The storm was still outside, pressing against the frame, and I was ready to open it. It began months earlier at the law firm. I had worked my way to the top, CEO, managing partner, the man with the final word in rooms where verdicts were bought and sold with precision. My wife's sister, meanwhile, had scraped her way through law school with borrowed money and reckless choices. She had begged me for help, and I had quietly paid her rent, her tuition, her overdue balances. I never told anyone, not even my wife, because help without gratitude always turns to debt, and debt always festers. At her graduation party, I noticed the change. She moved differently, too polished for someone who had stumbled so often. Her fiancé, tall, smug, eyes that lingered too long on my wife, was always at her side. He whispered into her ear like he owned her future. But it wasn't his presence that unsettled me. It was hers. The way she looked at me during the speeches, a flicker of defiance behind her smile, as if daring me to expose her reliance on me. And when she raised her glass to toast her new life, I saw it, the unspoken message in her eyes. "You're obsolete. I've traded you in for better." That was the night suspicion began to coil inside me. It wasn't jealousy, it was calculation. I learned long ago that truth rarely hides in shadows. It hides in plain sight, masked by noise, covered by laughter, dressed in respectability. You just need to strip away the performance. I started with her lease. Quiet inquiries through the property management company revealed the payments were made from an anonymous cashier's check every month. My cashier's check. She hadn't taken over a single installment since graduation. Then the fiancé. A background check. His records were clean enough on the surface, but scratch deeper, and the cracks appeared. Unemployment for 6 months, a failed bar exam, 2 overdraft notices in the last quarter. A man who could not afford his own shadow. And yet, she paraded him as superior to me. Phone records followed. Late-night calls between the two sisters. My wife's laughter carrying through closed doors. I listened carefully to her tone, her pauses. There was something there, an intimacy I had overlooked, a closeness that didn't fit the rhythm of sisterhood anymore. I began watching, not openly, never openly, but quietly, in the background, where silence sharpens everything. I noticed how her fiancé's hand lingered on my wife's back when no one was looking, how my wife's eyes followed him longer than courtesy required, how the sisters' remarks at dinner were never careless. They were tests, probing for weakness, for reaction. Every detail was another thread, and slowly the fabric of their pretense began to unravel. The proof came in a plain envelope. DNA results from a discreet clinic, a glass from the sink, a strand of hair from the bathroom floor. Science doesn't lie, even when people do. Her fiancé wasn't just orbiting my wife's attention. He was her son's father, the boy I had raised, the boy who bore my name. I stared at the report for hours, not in disbelief, not in rage, just in stillness, a calm so heavy it felt like drowning. When I finally spoke, it was at dinner. I slid the envelope across the table to my wife. She opened it with trembling hands, read, stopped breathing. Her sister's fork clattered against her plate. What is that?" she asked, her voice brittle. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The silence was louder than any accusation. The truth had arrived, and it stood between us, cold and undeniable. I let them speak first. My wife broke into sobs, her excuses tumbling out like broken glass. Her sister tried to steady her, then turned on me with venom that no longer carried weight. The fiancé sat frozen, stripped bare of the arrogance he had worn like armor. I remained silent. My stillness terrified them more than shouting ever could. Finally, I leaned back, just as I had the night she mocked me. "You called me half a man," I said softly, "but it seems your fiancé couldn't even be one at all." Her face collapsed. My wife buried her head in her hands. The fiancé pushed away from the table, eyes darting for an exit that wasn't there. And I stood, calm, controlled, already detached. "You want him?" I said, eyes on my wife. "Then you can have him, both of you. He can pay the rent. He can raise the child. He can carry the weight you hid from me." I left the envelope on the table, left them with the truth, raw and sharp. That was revenge enough. Walking out into the night, the air felt colder than usual, but lighter too. The house behind me was no longer mine. The family I thought I had was gone. But I didn't feel broken. I felt finished. They thought betrayal would destroy me. They thought secrets gave them power. But power is never in the secret. It's in the reveal. And I was the one who revealed it. The last sound I heard as I closed the door behind me was her voice, my wife's sister, gasping for breath as she realized what her arrogance had cost her. I didn't smile. I didn't look back. I simply walked away. Because sometimes the cruelest punishment isn't rage. It's indifference.